In this video, we're going to show you how to replace a knock sensor on your Scion XB. This is going to be located on the back of the motor. Let's get started. Remove the cap off the windshield wiper. Using a 14mm socket, remove the nut. We're going to push down on this hinge point right here. Kind of wiggle it. And you'll hit a point where it gets looser. Try and straighten out the wiper and remove it. Do the same thing for the other one. Lift straight up on the cowl and then pull down and remove it. Do the same thing on the other side. And remove the cowl. Using a 10mm socket, remove the bolts for the wiper transmission. Remove the connector for the wiper motor. There's a push button right on the back. Push that, pull straight back, remove that connector. Push the wiper transmission towards the passenger side and remove it from the vehicle. Using a trim removal tool, we're going to remove the plastic clip. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to remove all of the bolts for the plate. Remove the tray from the vehicle. Using a 10mm socket, remove the two nuts for the plastic engine cover. Remove the engine cover. Pinch the clamp. And remove the hose from the valve cover. While I was pulling, the bottom came off as well. Pinch the clamp and remove it off the intake. Using a 10mm socket, loosen the clamp for the intake boot. Wiggle, lift straight up, and remove the actuator from the side of the intake boot. Push the intake boot back off the airbox. Pinch the clamp for the hose. Remove it off the valve cover. It also popped off our intake. I'm going to put that right back on. Pop the hose off the intake boot. Pinch the clamp for the intake boot. Remove the intake boot off of the throttle body. Using a 12mm socket, remove the 4 bolts for the throttle body. We have a connector on the side of the throttle body we have to remove. There's a push button right on my middle finger. Push on that, pull straight back, remove the connector. I'm going to pull my throttle body up into the side. I'm going to remove my bolts so they can't fall out on me. Remove the connector for the VVT sensor. Push on the tab, pull straight back, remove the connector. Behind that we have a 10mm bolt. Remove that bolt. Pull the bracket off the intake. Pinch the hose clamp. Pull it back and remove the hose off of the hard line. This is connected to our intake manifold and we'll get after it later. Remove the plastic stay for the harness. I have a tab that I'm pushing on. And pull up, pull back, and remove that plastic. Reaching all the way over the engine, all the way down on the bottom of the intake manifold, we have a O2 sensor we have to disconnect. Push button is right on my thumb. We're going to push on that. Push on the button, pull straight back, and remove the O2 sensor. Using a trim tool, we're going to pop our plastic stay off of the intake manifold. Using a 12mm socket, we're going to go around and remove the 5 fasteners for the top of the intake manifold. We have one more down under the VVT sensor. Using a 12mm socket, we're going to remove the bottom bolt for the intake manifold. I had to use an extension to remove this bolt. If I didn't use an extension, my ratchet would hit the intake manifold. We have one more bolt on the driver's side we need to remove using a 12mm socket. Using a trim tool, we're going to pop our plastic stays off of the fuel rail. Under there we have 12mm nuts. Go ahead and remove those nut studs. Using a 14mm socket, remove the bolt for the fuel line bracket. Pull the fuel rail up and to the side, out of the way of the intake manifold. Don't forget to grab these spacers. Put a hand on the intake manifold. This stud is the last thing holding it up. Remove the intake manifold. Using a scraper, we're going to clean the mating surface where our intake gaskets are going to sit. You can use a razor blade or a light abrasive. Go around and get off all of the corrosion. When you're doing this, we want to make sure we're wiping everything away from the motor and not into these intake ports. Go around and get the whole mating surface nice and shiny. Then we'll take a clean rag with some brake clean and wipe it down. Do this for both sides. Now that we've scraped all of our ports, we're going to go around with a clean rag and some brake clean. We're just going to wipe all of the old oil and any dirt or dust that's left there, just leaving a nice shiny finish. Do this on both sides. When you're wiping this, be sure you're not wiping anything into the motor. If you do wipe something into the motor, just take your finger, swipe it out. Do this on both sides. We're going to pull our harness off of the stay. There's a tab right here you have to push down on. You can pull it forward and then off of that. Remove the connector for the knock sensor. There's a tab right on my thumb. Push on that tab, pull straight back, remove the connector. Take note of the position that the knock sensor is in. We are going to replace this in the same orientation. Using a 12mm socket, we're going to loosen and remove the nut. Remove the knock sensor. Make sure that surface is nice and clean. Install the new knock sensor. Install the nut. Get that sensor in place. And snug the nut down. When you do this, be sure that the sensor doesn't move. Torque the nut to 15 foot-pounds. If you can't get a torque wrench on it, do the best you can. Install the connector. Push until you hear a click. If you don't hear a click, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Install the plastic stay for the harness. Same thing, push until you hear a click. If you don't, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Install the studs for the intake manifold. I'm gonna get my two nuts installed, but not snug yet. We're gonna torque our studs. Just putting the nuts on so the intake doesn't fall backwards. Snug the nuts down. Torque the studs to 80 inch-pounds. Go around getting all of the bolts started by hand. Start in the middle and work your way out. Starting in the middle, we're going to torque all of our bolts to 22 foot-pounds. Install the bolt on the bottom of the intake manifold. Snug the bolt down and torque it to 22 foot-pounds. Install the connector, push until you hear a click. If you don't, give it a pull, make sure it's locked on. Using a clean rag, we're going to clean out our injector ports. We want to get any of the dust or dirt that got in there, anything that will make it so it doesn't seal. Gonna get our fuel rail ready to install. If your spacers fell out, go ahead and install them now. Install the fuel rail into place. Install the bolts for the fuel rail. Snug the bolts down. Torque the fuel rail nuts to 15 foot-pounds. Install the plastic stays. Drop the harness down. Install the plastic stay to the back of the intake. Make sure you leave the throttle body connector up here. We're going to drop the O2 sensor connector down. Install the fuel rail bracket bolt. Get it nice and snug. Install the throttle body down into place. Get all of the bolts started. Snug the bolts down in a cross pattern to make sure that the throttle body sits square on our gasket. Torque the bolts in a cross pattern to 22 foot-pounds. Install the connector for the throttle body. Push until you hear a click. If you don't, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Pinch the clamp and install the intake boot onto the throttle body. Get it lined up with the airbox. Make sure the intake boot is fully seated. Install the line. Install the intake boot onto the airbox and snug down the clamp. Get it nice and snug. Pinch the clamp, install the hose onto the valve cover. Install the actuator bracket into the intake boot. Install the bracket. Get the bolt started. Snug the bolt down. Install the hose onto the line. Pinch the clamp and slide it back into place. Install the connector for the VVT sensor. Push until you hear a click. If you don't, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Install the hose onto the intake. Pinch the clamp. Push it all the way on. Do the same thing on top. Pinch the clamp. Pull it on. Install the engine cover. Get the two nuts started. Snug them down. Install the panel into the vehicle. Install all of the bolts. Go around and snug down all of the bolts. Install the wiper transmission into place. Be sure it slides into that bracket. Install the bolts. Snug them down. Get them nice and tight. Install the plastic stay. Install the connector onto the wiper motor. Hear a click. If you don't, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Install the wiper cowl into place. Get it started onto the windshield first. Install the cowl cover. Be sure that it gets onto the windshield first, and then drop it down into place. And you'll have some clips that'll click in. Do the same thing on the other side. Install the wiper blades into place. We want to install these in the same position they came off in. If you have a dirt line that's on your windshield, use that to reinstall them. Install the nut for the windshield wiper. Snug the bolt down. Install the cap. Repeat the same process for the other wiper.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.